In May of 1947, 22-year-old Christina Kettlewell decided to settle down with a 26-year-old war veteran boyfriend, John Ray Kettlewell, better known as Jack. Their happily ever after would however end tragically only 8 days after their marriage. Hello you, my name's Jack, and welcome to Paradoxical Adventure. Here we post true crime, unsolved mysteries, and all things dark. If that's something you're interested in, please like and subscribe. Let's get into it. On the 12th of May 1947, about a year and 9 months after the end of the Second World War, Christina Kettlewell, born Christina Macon, eloped with Jack Kettlewell, her 26-year-old boyfriend at the time. Christina and Jack had known each other for 3 years. Christina's family was however concerned about the marriage, and her parents did not approve of it at all. Her family was worried because Jack had a friend named Ronald Barry. Ronald was a 28-year-old professional ballroom dancer and immigrant from Italy. According to her family, Ronald and the couple spent an inordinate amount of time together. It got to a point where Christina's family thought that Ronald might be in love with Christina. Christina's sister said that she looked drugged a couple of days leading up to the wedding, and most certainly at the wedding itself. After Christina and Jack eloped, they spent the first days as a newlywed couple in a rented apartment in Toronto. This would have been completely normal if it weren't for the fact that Ronald had joined them for the entire honeymoon. On the 17th of May 1947, the couple and Ronald made their way to a remote cottage in Seven Falls that Ronald owned. The cottage was only accessible by boat. During the time at the cottage, Christina reportedly began acting strange and completely out of character. She would go into crying fits and at other times seemed out of it and dazed. There was evidence that suggested that during this time Christina had conversations with Ronald about whether or not Jack actually loved her. On the 20th of May 1947, Christina would disappear, and Ronald's cabin mysteriously caught fire. On the 20th of May 1947, Ronald left the cottage to sunbathe. Ronald later noticed smoke coming out of the cottage and ran back. Once there, he found it on fire, and Jack with apparent head injury, and pulled him out of the flames. Jack was completely disoriented. Ronald tried looking for Christina, but could not find her anywhere in the cottage. According to Ronald, the entire cottage burned down in just an hour. Ronald then took Jack back to the mainland at Seven Falls, using the boat. Jack was taken to a hospital and was said to have burn wounds, a head injury, and drugs, namely codeine, in his system. The police were then contacted. Christina's body was found only 150 feet away from a cottage by a nearby boathouse owner. Christina's body was free from any burn wounds and signs of violence. A later autopsy found traces of codeine in her stomach, but her death was ultimately declared a drowning. Codeine is an oral prescription opioid or narcotic drug most commonly used to treat mild to moderate pain and as a cough suppressant. What makes this case even more bizarre is the fact that Major Lawrence Scarfield, who acted as the first responder to the fire, reported that he did not see Christina's body or any signs of her in the area when he went to get water to help extinguish the flames from the house just hours earlier. 22 people, including Jack and Ronald, were interrogated by the police. Ronald was interrogated for 13 hours, and Jack was interrogated for 3 hours. Jack had no recollection of the attack, or the time before that. He couldn't remember any part of the 20th of May, 1947. On the 19th of June, 1947, an inquest began to decide whether or not Christina's death involved foul play. The inquest took place at the courthouse, and there were so many people that both Jack and Ronald were being asked for autographs by women. Both Jack and Ronald were found not guilty due to a lack of incriminating evidence. A few strange details of the lives of Jack, Ronald, and Christina were revealed during the inquest, but ultimately the inquest could not definitively decide if foul play was involved or not. This unfortunately led to the case not being pursued or investigated further. One of the revelations that occurred included the fact that some people believed Christina was upset due to an unnatural relationship between Ronald and Jack. This is most likely 1940s language for whether the two men were lovers. John had previously admitted to having an intimate relationship with Ronald. He would however later claim that he was coerced into saying this during the court trial. There was no evidence to support this relationship, but it was highly believed to have existed. So during this inquest there were two major theories that they were looking at. The first one was fraud for insurance money, and the second one was regarding Christina's mental health. We're going to look at both of those theories right now. Theory number 1. This theory focuses on the most common motive when it comes to crime: money. In this case, more specifically, insurance fraud. Ronald had recently insured his cottage for $5,000 and named Jack as the beneficiary. It was also revealed during the inquest that when Jack had received his war gratitude, he had given it all to Ronald. This isn't the end of insurance fraud theory, however. Jack had taken out life insurance policies of $500 Canadian on both himself and Christina, naming Ronald the beneficiary of both insurances. To make things even worse, the policy stated that if death occurred due to accident, the policies would pay out double. Christina's wedding ring has never been found and was not on her body. The value of this ring was also highly debated. Ronald had previously pursued careers in both insurance and construction. If you had to mix the speculation that the two men were in a romantic relationship, it makes this theory a lot more plausible. The second theory focuses on Christina's mental health and the possibility that she had an undiagnosed mental illness. The inquest aired out some scandalous facts about Jack and Ronald, but Christina was not spared. This theory stated that Christina tried to kill Jack and then committed suicide due to mental illness. Christina had written multiple suicide letters leading up to her death on the 20th of May 1947. The first one was written 5 weeks before her wedding. Christina and Jack weren't even engaged yet. In this letter, Christina said she couldn't bear to see Jack end up with another woman. In another letter, she clearly states that she wants to kill not just herself, but also Jack. The reason in this letter is the same as in the first one. If she can't have him, nobody can. The letter stated, "When you love someone, you really love him. And I know there's no one for me but Jack. And if I cannot have him, I don't intend anyone else to. As you might say, I waited in the hope that Jack would ask me to marry him, but I now realize that I might just be a passing fancy." Most of the letters were addressed to Ronald. This means that he was aware of Christina's unstable mental health. Some people believe that this is why he tagged along on the couple's honeymoon, to try and prevent anything from going wrong or somebody getting hurt. Christina's last suicide letter was written on the 19th of May 1947, the day before the cabin fire and her death. It said, "Ronnie's in the boat outside somewhere. By the time he gets back, everything will be over with. He must be afraid something would happen, because he's staying an extra day to make sure we go back to Toronto with him." Ronald was able to save all of the letters from the cabin fire, and he was able to present them in court later on. So now we're going to move on to some of the contradictions in this case. Ronald made a contradictory statement to the police early on in the investigation. In that statement, he said when he went back to the cottage, he found a disoriented Jack with blood on his face. He also mentioned that Christina was being untalkative with tears in her eyes. Ronald then claimed he carried Jack outside, and 15 minutes later smoke began to come out of the kitchen windows. Ronald said that when he went inside the cottage, he could not find Christina or a weapon that might have been used to attack Jack. This specific account throws more light on the strangeness of Christina's behavior, but at the same time it drastically differs from every other account of the incident. This includes all other accounts by Ronald himself. A defense lawyer named C.P. Hope called Ronald a liar of the most blatant kind, one whose purpose and design are shrouded in mystery. 3 years after Christina's death, Jack married another woman and started a family. They also briefly stayed in the house that he had once shared with Christina. Jack never told his family about Christina, and his own children would only find out decades later while reading in a library. Ronald moved to New York City in 1956, and his last known possession was a pet dog that he gave to Jack's son. Ronald hasn't been heard from since. Despite all the theories, whether it be suicide, murder, an accident, or premeditated insurance fraud, this case still remains unsolved until today. Thank you very much for watching, I really appreciate it. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. We'll be posting 2 to 3 times every week. Thank you very much.